If you are in the Northern Hemisphere, then it's currently winter and as a result colder than a gravedigger's shovel outside. If you are keen to bring that wintry nonsense inside and onto your Warhammer or miniature basing, then I am going to give you the lowdown on my snow techniques. I'll also show you how I did the basing for my Golden Demon piece, Arjak Rockfist. Let's just get straight into it. Let's start with the base. Snow is always the icing on the cake, and like actual icing, it can hide a multitude of sins, but only if you do your prep work first. So, the wise hobbyist paints their base without snow in mind, and then slaps it on at the end, like nature intended, chaotically and without warning. Realism means giving yourself more work than necessary because what is this hobby if not lovingly crafting details that no one will ever notice? Small disclaimer here, despite its appearance, snow paste is not tasty nor good for your insides. So this is it's not a let's lick the spoon when you're finished type situation, okay? Anyway, I am starting with these sculpted resin bases that I've had sitting about for longer than I care to think about. They're basically just some rocks and ground cover. You could DIY something similar with slate or bark and texture paste if you hate money or love things that are a lot harder than they need to be. Now, to show you how I did the Arjak Rockfist base, I'm going to do a bit of sculpting. I have got a couple of bark chunks, nothing fancy. You can buy this stuff for pennies online. I imagine you could find it at Big Billy's bumperbagofbasingbark.com. And I'm using Magic Sculpt to glue them to the base. Magic Sculpt, green stuff, Milliput, Epoxy Sculpt. All of these are two-part epoxies that you mix in equal parts until your fingers hurt, and then you sculpt it until it dries or you give up, whichever comes first. I use a bit of Vaseline to keep it from sticking to my gloves, but water also works for this too. Sculpting-wise, this is pretty basic. You just slap the putty down, smoosh on one of the bark bits, use another bark bit to texture the putty so it looks like a slightly different bark. Rinse, repeat, maybe twist the bark slightly to create an overhang if you're feeling spicy like I did with Arjak's base. Actually, on the Arjak version, I built out over the edge of the plinth and sanded it back once it had cured, which tends to be overnight, because I was keen to avoid that, oh hey, I'm a space marine who's found himself on a stupidly high rock but with no clear way up type of look that I do tend to see quite a lot. I think the terrain needs to help tell the story, so always think about how the model got to where it is. Like, literally, did they just walk there? What's the deal? Next day, once it's all dried and rock hard, like your hobby backlog guilt, I hit it with AK's Fine Black Primer, a rattle can, nothing fancy, just normal primer, and then it is on to painting. So I went for some wet blending, threw in some warm tones, bit of purple in the shadows for that moody Tolkien energy, and then used a bit of dry brushing, that sort of thing, just catch all the upper edges, bring out the texture, and kind of add a few washes, bit of colour variation, because real rocks are rarely just grey, unless they're on your mum's gravel driveway, and even then we're talking, there's got to be some variation. The smaller bases got painted up in slightly different tones to just show that rock colours are a lawless land, and as long as they vibe together, you're golden. Dry brushing does help with that sort of stage, just bringing everything together. But now, snow, finally, the thing that the video is about. You can make your own snow with baking soda and PVA, but I like how AK's snow texture looks, and specifically snow. The one that they do is soft, marshmallowy, like the inside of a Tunnix tea cake, if you know what that is, and also snow sprinkles, which is kind of a little bit more gritty, slushy, very much not edible though. Let's start with the sprinkles. So I'm using an old synthetic brush, just slap it on all over. I'm doing this so that you can see it in action. It kind of looks like sugary slush once it's dried. A wise man once said, "Don't lick it." Next base, we're going to use snow paste. Now it can dry out a little bit near the edges of the tub, but a little splash of water will fix that. And this also means you can control the viscosity. So if you want really syrupy snow, add water. If you want concrete snow, don't, I guess. This stuff looks a bit more like fresh snowfall. It sort of stays where you put it. It's quite fluffy in appearance. Again, brush it on where snow would naturally settle. Avoid the undersides unless you want to look like an idiot who doesn't understand where snow comes from. Or I guess if you want to show that it was windy or something, I don't know, put some drifts in for all I care. Okay, now let's talk fancy Arjac approach. So I did a first layer with snow paste on a real project. Obviously, I'd be avoiding the foot pinholes like a responsible modeler. After that has dried all the way around, I would look at adding some snow sprinkles around the edges and in some of the lower spots or the covered spots to kind of simulate that older melting snow. This should also add some texture, depth, realism, and distract from any paint crimes. Now, what I realise is I've made a big mistake here, and you probably won't have noticed this, but the paint that I put onto the bases before I started slapping on the snow paste wasn't fully dry. So the snow paste has sucked up some of that colour, and now the snow looks like it lost a bar fight with a puddle, which is not ideal. Moral of the story is let your paint dry or varnish it first if you're fancy or obsessive compulsive. The snow sprinkles dried mostly clear, like slush or wet snow. Yeah, let's look at the snow stuff, and here's where we go off-piste, as it were. I added a sort of wash of aquatic turquoise from AK around the snow edges. Well, this is because Arjac has turquoise reflected in his armour, which I wanted to do on the model anyway, and snow isn't always white. In fact, it's rarely white. Sometimes it's tainted by magic, drama, or artistic overreach. I thinned it down so it wouldn't scream at you. It just sort of whispered its presence. Topped it after that with a second layer of snow paste to kind of trap that blue underneath, sort of giving it a cool, complicated iceberg vibe. But it definitely screams ideas above my station a little bit more now. While that dried, I layered up some more snow on the other two bases just to show what multiple applications look like. Spoiler, it's pretty much more of the same with a bit of depth. But you can see the texture paste and the sort of snow sprinkles going on a little bit more here. Right. Final day, final details. So I used an AK real colour marker to black out the rims because nothing ruins a base faster than a messy rim. The snow sprinkles base dried with a sort of frosty finish, and I guess actually it could pass for seafoam if you're looking for that sort of thing. Let's look at the Arjac piece next to the Golden Demon finalist version. The big difference, I guess, you will notice is, apart from the fact that it's a hexagon base and it's got a miniature on it and all that, is the icicles. I actually tried these icicles three ways. First of all, I melted clear plastic flight stands, which ended up being too uniform. I went with UV resin on its own to try and kind of stretch that out and cure it as it was stretching, and that was a nightmare to control. And finally, I ended up going with little triangular shards of clear plastic blister pack, which I glued on with super glue initially, and then waited for that to dry and put UV resin over the top of that, and that version sort of stuck, literally and metaphorically. The handy thing about the resin was, of course, I used some around the rocks too for that sort of freshly melted, wet, glossy look, which added a bit more realism and made me feel clever. So that's basically three ways to do a snow base, plus a peek at my 2025 Golden Demon finalist piece. I'm going to take this to Adepticon in 2026 this year, and then probably retire it like a sports legend you've never heard of with bad knees. Product links and my socials are down below. Instagram for project pics, Discord for paint chat and hot takes and feedback. Feel free to hit like, maybe subscribe if you're into this kind of thing, because only 7% of you watching this are subscribed apparently, which is statistically rude. Anyway, until next time, stay frosty.